So about like joining the military, any advice to young men and women?
Air Force or nothing. If you're truly interested in other branches, join the reserves first and see how you like it.
So if you were to do over, you would join the Air Force instead?
Probably.
Gonna have a quick chat with my buddy Phil, good friend of mine that I work with, playratedgames.com. Go check it out. But Phil here was he joined the Navy when he was 26. He was in the Navy for 3 years, and he's got some. He's a really wise person, one of the smartest people I know. We're gonna talk with him real quick. He's gonna give some advice to you young folks considering a military career. Back to you, Phil.
Basically, we were supposed to be back in around 6 months, 6 to 8 months. That's the standard deployment time. We were the only, battle-ready aircraft carrier in the whole fleet. So I remember we were supposed to go out to the Pacific, South China Sea, and then because shit was stirring up in the stuff was stirring up in the Middle East, so then we went to the Persian Gulf.
So we got that.
No, I ordered these online, but I went to Bahrain and Oman.
One of the many things you told me about the military was that you, aside from like a few of the really prestigious medals, you have to purchase your own.
Yes.
What do you guys think about that?
Believe it or not, for the longest time, I just didn't get them because I didn't want to pay for them. I literally just got all my stuff this year.
I remember when you left, you kind of resented it for a bit. You wouldn't even play like certain video games.
No, for a while, I didn't play any games. I didn't watch any movies. I really needed to decompress. I really needed to separate myself from the whole thing. I felt trapped.
It seemed like it was an overwhelmingly negative experience.
No, yeah, it's just the thing about the military is that a lot of egos, a lot of clashing of personalities, and it's just basically for the lower enlisted, it kind of just becomes Lord of the Flies.
Establishing a hierarchy instead of actually a camaraderie.
Yeah, I remember one kid just flat out said, "No, I'm not a team player," and I'm just like, "Then why are you here?"
Yeah, what the we're all on the same ship.
I will never forget this till the day I die. I remember we were out in the Gulf, and some guy actually tried to fight me, and I'm like, there are Iranian PT boats less than half a mile away from us, people who legitimately want us dead, and you're trying to pick a fight. I'll just say this. A lot of people in the military are... Here's how it works. From what I've seen, there's really no happy medium. You're either a total boot, like a total suck-up, or you're a total shitbag who just doesn't care. And not gonna lie, it gets pretty grating.
Or do you try to fall into?
I tried to be the happy medium. I tried, I didn't want to suck up to the chain because, who likes a teacher's pet? But, I didn't try to be a total shitbag either. I wanted to be somebody that you could rely on. I was a pretty decent forklift driver whenever they needed, because nobody ever wanted to freaking do it.
Yeah.
Whenever they needed a forklift driver, I was usually one they called upon. I'm not gonna lie, there were moments where I did let people's negativity drag me down. I really wish I didn't, but I always try to. I tried to keep my head down. I stayed out of trouble. That's actually one thing on my eval. They said they really appreciate is that I really didn't cause trouble, because there's a lot of people who did.
Yeah, I mean, you're stuck on a boat, a big ass ship. How many people?
Around 5,000, give or take. And I gotta say, man, when you're on a boat of 5,000 people, food isn't really the best quality. It's about quantity. How much can we get out for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? There was a squadron guy, a helicopter guy. So we were off the coast of either Bahrain or Oman, and they were doing fly missions, and they actually got to land on the base nearby, and they actually had access to the McDonald's on base, and I remember one of them came with a bag full of burgers, and I remember it had been so long since I actually tasted real food. I offered him $20 for a McSingle. $20, and he said no.
He didn't take it.
No.
What? Because like he thought he'd be in trouble for it. Or?
No, just because he's like, sorry, man, I promised my boys.
Well, you know what? I can commend that. He turned the $20 for a sandwich that cost what, like 99 cents?
Something like that.
What were they feeding you guys?
So
Slop?
So they're supposed to, like, we have replenishment out. I forget what it's called. Replenish at sea. Basically, there's a supply ship that flies along. That sails alongside you, and the helicopters will, get the cargo and then bring it to your boat. It'll be like food, whatever. But due to the chaotic nature of our deployment, it didn't always come on time. So they would try to like serve us a decent variety of food. But then when stuff was in short supply, it was mostly frozen pizzas and corn dogs.
Why'd you go with the Navy over the other ones?
They traveled the most.
Oh yeah, you're trying to see the world?
Yes.
And that
Not very good. Here's where we did get to go. We went to Bahrain, we went to Oman, and we went to Guam.
that's kind of cool though. Not many people get to go there.
Well, the thing is that with the Middle East ports, we were just kind of on the pier.
Just concrete.
Concrete and storage containers, and honestly looked a lot like a Call of Duty map. Yeah, we tried to make the most of it. They gave us alcohol. They got us food from the restaurants nearby.
You got screwed because of COVID time.
Yes.
So where is the coolest place that you boarded at?
I guess Guam, because we actually got to go to the beach. Basically, we were supposed to be in the Pacific. We were supposed to have Rimac.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so it stands for Rim of the Pacific Ocean, and basically it is the largest maritime military exercise in the world. It has 20 plus nations participating. It'll have all sorts of like aircraft carriers, battleships, submarines, frigates, whatever else they have. Basically, it's simulated warfare. They'll launch attacks against simulated enemies. They'll use decommissioned boats for target practice. They'll have landings in Hawaii with the Marines and other amphibious land forces. You're supposed to have this really epic opening ceremony. You're supposed to have these meet and greets. What else? All these athletic competitions like volleyball, soccer, track runs, whatever. And then afterwards you get liberty in Hawaii and you just get to explore the island. We didn't have that. They canceled it.
COVID?
Yep. And honestly, after being out to sea for 7 months, here's the thing, I never really cared about it, but the 7th month mark, I was completely disinterested. Now, yeah, after a while, the days do kind of all bleed together. And I remember my chief was really excited about Rimac. I'm sure he must have done it before. I didn't really care, but again, 6 months in, it wasn't even on my mind.
Get me the hell off this boat.
I don't care about seeing the world at this point. I just want to go home. The Air Force has the best quality of life, best food, smartest people. And also they have pretty nice base locations to go to. My uncle was based in Germany when he was there. He was actually in the former Yugoslavia during the 90s. But to all those who really have interest in other branches, the Coast Guard's deployments aren't nearly as... don't get me wrong, the training is just as hard and grueling. But from what I heard, the deployments are a lot more manageable. I think it's only a couple weeks, from what I heard. If there's any Coast Guard people watching this, correct me if I'm wrong. But if you're really interested in becoming a Marine, a soldier, or whatever, I would really recommend doing reserves first and seeing how you like it. Because if you do reserves and you find out you don't like it, it's not nearly as big as a commitment. And then once you're done, you're just done. Because if you go active duty and you realize you hate it, that's your gig all year round. Like I said, Air Force or nothing. Otherwise, I honestly, in good faith, can't recommend it. Not right now. There's just been too much calamity. There's just been too much calamity. I remember the day it happened when Kabul fell to the Taliban. I'd been keeping up with the story for a couple weeks prior, how the Taliban was gaining more ground. And I remember one day I just looked it up again and it said Kabul has fallen, the Emirate's been reestablished. And I'm thinking, like, my goodness, what's my command have to say about this? This was a 20-year costly war, and essentially we didn't gain anything of it. We basically lost thousands of soldiers, wasted God knows how much money to replace the Taliban with the Taliban. And I remember just thinking, like, something has to be said. I go in the next day. You know what they said about it? Nothing. Didn't even mention it.
What's life been like since you got out?
It's a bit of an adjustment problem at first. A lot of veterans, it's pretty common for veterans. Like I said, when I first got out, I didn't watch any military movies. I didn't play any Call of Duty. I really needed to distance myself and decompress. I really needed to find myself again. One of the first things I did when I came home is I went to NJ HorrorCon.
Get back to your old self.
Yeah, feel like my old self again. And it like, not gonna lie, I felt pretty on edge. I felt pretty anxious, but just just getting back in touch and remembering what I'm passionate about, what I love, that helped considerably. And one thing that I knew I had to do was the whole reason why I joined was to see the world, and I didn't get to, and I knew that was one wrong I had to right. So since then, I've been to 8 countries. I went to
Dracula's Castle.
yes. I went to Germany. I've been to Hungary. I've been to Romania. I've been to Serbia. I've been to Switzerland, and just recently I went to Spain, Andorra, and France. Joining the Navy and not getting to see anything, you really do feel like the carpet was just pulled underneath you. You really feel like you were robbed.
You were cheated.
You feel like you were cheated, and that was just something I knew I couldn't live with. I had to right that wrong.
I think you are, though.
Yeah, no, since then, I mean, don't get me wrong, I still have some grievances about it, but for the most part, I dare say my time's been redeemed. I'm getting married next week, so there's that. Planning trips to other places, trying to go to maybe Japan, Thailand, Korea. What I encourage for everybody, veteran or not, especially for young adults, everybody needs a soul-cracking experience. Everybody needs some sort of epiphany or realization that cracks open their soul and lets them realize there's so much more to life than just themselves. When we're young adults, we're all caught up in just our edgelord ways, our arrogance, the gloating of disrespect we give others, just us trying to stand out in all the most negative ways. I really recommend that people take trips, read books, travel, watch documentaries, listen to someone else's story to really show you how there's so much more to life than just you. One thing that really cracked open my soul was when I watched the Jonestown documentary. Stephen Jones, the son of Jim Jones, said that for the longest time he just didn't function for the longest. He just, his entire perception of reality was just shattered. Understandably so. But he said,
Kool-Aid guy, right?
Flavor Aid. They couldn't afford the real thing. Once he got clean, once he got sober, once he had a daughter, that's when he realized life was really worth living. And that's what I tell to all people too. We were all young once. We all lacked perspective. But I do encourage people to try to find it sooner rather than later, because there's some people who just never do. Again, we've all had moments where, like, we like go to frat houses, we get drunk on the beach, and I'm not saying don't enjoy life, but like don't let all those things just consume you and have that be the only thing you find enjoyable. But here, on a lighter note, let me share some interesting moments from my A school. A school is, if you guys don't remember, A school is basically your like specialty school. Like once you're done with basic, like whether you're doing aviation rates, IT, whatever, like it helps you get familiar with your fleet specialty. So it was in Pensacola, Florida. We were in the aviation, and I remember we had an ABE or ABH, I don't remember. We had this guy who was, he was pretty cool. He was surprisingly laid back for the most part. And usually he wouldn't really, like, if you missed shaving for like maybe a day, he usually wouldn't give you too much of a hassle for it. Yeah, so like I shaved the night before, because I hate shaving like in the morning, because like I'm just so groggy, and like like when you're not fully awake, just the way the razor feels on your face. So I shaved, like I woke up, I looked at myself, I'm like, you know what, it's fine, it'll probably be fine. But he actually wasn't there that day. We had a substitute, and he was not lenient. I remember, I remember he was like, "Did you shave this morning?" And I'm like, and I said with the most blatant, I said just right to his face, I'm like, "Yep." He pulls out, this isn't a credit card. He pulls out his credit card. He's like, "No, you didn't. Get to the front." So basically, it was me and like 4 or 5 other guys, and I remember he was like, "You know what I see here? I see complacency," or whatever that word is. He's like, "And I don't like it." He looked at his watch. He's like, "You guys have 10 minutes to yourselves. Go." And we all sprinted for our barracks room. I went there. I shaved as fast as I could. I'm looking at my clock. I have literally like less than 3 minutes left. I'm running down the sidewalk, and basically, like, imagine this. Like, basically, I'm at the sidewalk. There's a path here, path there, and either path leads to the school. But I know if I take the right path, I won't make it in time. The school's right in front of me, but there's this big open field. At an A school, you are under no circumstances allowed to walk on the grass unless it's for PT. And, I was looking at my watch, and I'm like, I literally have like a minute left. I'm not going to make it. So I looked both ways, and I ran across that field as fast as my legs could take me. Like, time slowed down. I was just so on edge. So on edge. I was just like, I gotta make it, because in A school, they can still, discipline you pretty harshly. They can still do that in the fleet, but like basically the severity is like basic training at its worst, A school, intermediate, fleet, sort of relaxed, but not really. Anyway, so I get to the class, I sit down, I look, I barely made it, and the chief never even came back.
Phil here's got a great story. It's the first story he told me as soon as he got out of the Navy.
Okay, so basically they have, these written tests in the Navy, or like multiple choice. So anyway, I remember we took this test, and I got pretty much the lowest score in the entire division, like probably one of the lowest, if not the lowest. And basically how it works is if you fail the first time, they allow you to take it again, I think the next day or close to it. And I remember my chief told me, he's like, Manzan, just like, so real quick. Basically, they give you another chance to take it, and if you don't make it, they roll you all the way back to basically phase 1. And
do it all over from scratch.
Yeah, basically they roll you all the way back to day 1.
Fuck that.
And who the hell wants that? So anyway, I remember my chief like looked at the scores, and he's just like, Manzan, just pack your bags now. There's no way. There's no way you're gonna make it. So I remember the entire night I just studied my ass off. I studied that thing back to fucking front. And then I remember me and like maybe 6, I think it was like 7 other guys, we failed. Again, I got the lowest. They take us to the building where we're supposed to retake it. And I remember I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh yeah, I know this. Oh, I know that too. I'm like, all right, I got a decent feeling. I try not to like, you know, I always a huge rule of mine. I never count my chickens before they hatch, or whatever that saying is. You know what I'm saying?
I think you got it.
So anyway, I remember like I handed it in. I felt pretty good, and then my RDC, which is the equivalent of a Navy drill instructor. They're not called drill instructors in the Navy. They're called RDCs. He came in and he was like, okay, so how many of you do you think failed? And I'm like, oh man. And then I'm like, I don't know, 3, 4. And he said, one. One of you failed. And I'm just like, you know, obviously,
It's me.
I'm just thinking like, oh man, I'm like, who is it? He's like, I'll tell you when we get back. So we're walking back to our, we're walking back to our, oh man, what the heck were they called?
Not barracks.
They're not called barracks in the Navy. I think they're called compounds or something.
Yeah.
It's been so long. I know I should know this, but anyway, we're walking. Let's just call it barracks. So we're walking back to our compartment. I think it was called a compartment. We walk back to our compartment. I go to my friend, and he's like, "Dude, how do you think you did?" And I'm like, "I don't know, man. One of us failed." And I hear my chief scream from the office in the compartment, like, "Manson, get in here!" And I'm thinking, like, all right, well, I guess I'm the one who failed. So I'm like, all right, guys, it's been real, but evidently, you know, just things worked out differently than intended. So I go to the office. I pop to attention, just like waiting to get lacerated. I'm like, yes, chief. And he's like, Manson, how the did you go from a 1.7 to a 4.2? And I'm like, what? He's like, nothing, get out. So I went from getting one of the lowest grades to one of the highest grades, and I'm not going to lie, that felt pretty good.
What a badass.
Yeah. By default, it does give you purpose because, like, again, like, you know, you have to follow these orders. So by default, yes, it does give you purpose. But in terms of internally, like, are those emotional or mental needs being made? Not necessarily. That's why some people don't stay in for more than one enlistment. It, like, again, for some people, it's just means to an end. They just want to set themselves up for something better, whether it's going to school or, you know, getting some sort of like trade skill or something like that. But here's one thing I will say the military does give. It gives you perspective. It does give you perspective. Basically, it can teach you this. It can either teach you to be a real team player, as it should, or it can teach you that if you're just in an environment that doesn't cater to that, it can really teach you to adapt and stand on your own 2 feet. That's the best way to put it. Either it helps you integrate with the team, or in a strange way, it'll do the opposite and it'll make you more independent-minded than ever.
Is that what it did for you?
Yes, it went to show me.
The latter, I mean?
Yes, the latter. I dare say that if there's one takeaway the military definitely showed me, as counterintuitive as it sounds, it taught me how to stand on my own 2 feet, because a lot of the time everyone's just in it for themselves. Like, you'll meet some very selfish people there.
Thanks for doing this, Phil.